Howdy, howdy, and welcome. We are here for Workshop Wednesday. Hopefully you are as well. Today, we're actually doing a getting started topic. So this is for those of you who are beginners, and in particular, we're going to go over some spreadsheet tips and tricks that you can use as a marketer, because I understand you have to face some spreadsheets from time to time. All right, my name, if you are new to Workshop Wednesday, welcome, by the way. My name is Chris Mercer. I actually do go by Mercer, and I'm the co-founder here at MeasureMarketing.io. And whether you found us through maybe our podcasts and talks that we're always out there giving, maybe it's from some of the other platforms that we work with, like Digital Marketer, CXL Institute, or Social Media Examiner. Maybe you are already a member over at MeasureMarketing.io. However you found us, welcome to Workshop Wednesday. Our job is to help people just like you use tools like Google Analytics and Tag Manager and Data Studio and Facebook Analytics. And today, we're going to talk about spreadsheets, because spreadsheets are a necessary evil. I know they're not comfortable for everybody, but I want to sort of help you loosen up a little bit when it comes to spreadsheets, show you a few things that you can start to use right away. Now, we are going to cover the Measure Marketing Framework like we do every Wednesday. The reason is because it helps put today's training in context. You can use spreadsheets to help you with planning, whatever it is that you're trying to measure. You can use spreadsheets to guide your builds. You can use spreadsheets, obviously, for the reports that you're getting. You can use spreadsheets to forecast. And yes, you can use spreadsheets for optimization. If you don't believe me, go become a Toolbox member at MeasureMarketing.io. It's a free membership. Those of you who are already a member at MeasureMarketing.io know what I'm talking about. A lot of our tools, like our split test optimization pipeline is there. The Google Analytics audit is there. They're built in spreadsheets. Our MeasureBoss planning system is back there for business planning and revenue forecasting. So there's lots of things you can do with spreadsheets. So definitely, this particular training, it hits all of these pillars. All right, now, here's the thing. There's going to be a lot that we're going to cover. I'm going to give you a lot of stuff. It is not one of these workshops you're going to watch and know everything there is to know about spreadsheets. I want you to just pick up one new thing, one new concept, one thing you've heard differently, or one thing you can practice to actually put into action to build the skill. Then come back and rewatch this workshop and then pick up something else, because there's going to be a lot, and not everything is going to be immediately useful to you, right? So everyone's in different positions when it comes to spreadsheets. So we're going to have all of that there for you. All right, I'm going to just realize this is sitting here. I want to get this. Why do we even have that there? All right, all gone. Much better recordings now. All right. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Getting started. Spreadsheet tips and tricks. Now we're going to dive right in. This is going to be, I hope, one of my favorite workshops, because we're going to start with like the blankest of slates that I can possibly imagine, which is google.com. And we're going to start this with our first tip. Now I'm going to reference these, by the way, with Google Sheets. A lot of these apply to Excel. This particular one does not. So you can do sheets.new. And if you go to sheets.new, it will automatically create a Google Sheet for you. It's the coolest thing. I hardly have ever used that until I was actually just doing a little bit of research for this particular workshop, and was like, okay, cool. Like, there's a quick way to do a spreadsheet. Now, of course, you have to be signed into Google, but when you do that, that's the fastest way to create a new spreadsheet doc. So there's already tip number one. Now, again, as a marketer, you're going to be using spreadsheets. As somebody who is trying to figure out what's going on with your business and ways to improve your results, your marketing results, whatever it is that you're trying to measure, maybe you're getting exported data from your CRM or from Facebook or your ad platforms or whatever it is, you're going to be dealing with spreadsheets. So this particular workshop is in the spirit of how to work with it, how to make it look a little easier to get through, how to keep it clean. And so we're going to start from the very basics and move forward. Now, my first tip when it comes to spreadsheets, and hopefully this one is already happening for you, is you've got to use headers. So I'm going to create something really simple here. I'm just going to say this is the name, this is the product, this is the units sold. Let's say it was like a sales report. And then this is the price of the sale. So we have that. So this is a header. This is all this is. It just gives a title to whatever's in the column. So the names are all here, the products are here, the units are here, the price is here. So again, just as an example, it might be John Doe, and the product is apples that John was selling. And then units sold maybe sold 23 for a total price of $1.99, something like that each. Let's say it was per each. So I'm going to call this unit price. You know what? Let's do price per unit. Why not? So we'll say price per unit. Now, we can, of course, if I needed to, if I wanted to come down here and make some adjustments and pull a report, we could do that and pull it in. I'm just going to copy this very quickly to kind of give you some examples of how it is. So we're going to change this to pears, and I'm going to change this maybe to oranges. And let's assume, and I'm going to show you another little trick here. So let's just assume, if I could spell oranges, there we go. So let's assume for a second we only have apples, pears, and oranges to sell. Now I could come in here and type this in over and over and over again, but I'm going to show you something which is really cool when it comes to spreadsheets. I personally use this all the time. You'll see this in the tools that we give out in our Toolbox membership as well over at measuremarketing.io. And it's something called data validation. It's the most complicated sounding thing, but it's super simple to use. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. So we're making the assumption that it's apples, pears, and oranges. And that's the only three things that we're going to sell right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this block. So I just right clicked. Now I'm going to scroll down to where it says data validation. It's always the very, very bottom. So we click on data validation and up pops this complicated looking box, which is really just saying, okay, what do you want me to put here? Like it's basically going to build a drop down for us, and it wants to know where to get the information from. Now I could link it into another spreadsheet. We're not going to do that today, but you totally can if you want, and we will do that often. But I've also found this to be very helpful, and people don't realize this is here, this list of items. So then you can just say it is apples, pears, and oranges, which we sell. And that's it. So it's like apples, pears, and oranges. And then we're just going to keep this as it is, click on save. And now you notice this little drop down arrow that's here. So if you've ever seen these little drop down arrows in the spreadsheet, that's all it is, just data validation. So what I'm going to do is now I have this, I can see apples, pears, and oranges. Now what I'm going to do is just pull that down. I'm just going to the lower right-hand corner and dragging this down. The whole thing copies. Of course, with the value of apples, because that's what the initial sort of parent here was. But you can change it now to whatever the thing was that everyone's going forth and doing. So now it's a quick and easy way to make sure that nobody accidentally misspells something. Nobody puts in apple instead of, apple. Here we go. Nobody puts in apple instead of apples. Nobody puts in pear, right? Misspells oranges like I did earlier, because the drop downs help keep the data clean. That's why I use data validation, to make sure that if you have a specific number of products, for example, types of products, things like that, that's where you use data validation. Whenever you have a certain list of items, I always recommend you do that because it helps anybody else using the spreadsheet, including you, to keep things contained and simple. Okay, so now we have a little data validation going on here. We've got our names coming on here. Now, sometimes we have the full name, which is where we get. I'm going to show you some other cool little tip. So, but you don't always want the full name. Sometimes you need the first name and the last name. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to, and I'm going to show you another tip as we go through with spreadsheets. I told you this is going to be a lot. You're going to watch this one a bunch of times. So I'm going to right click here in this column and I'm going to make some space. So right click on my insert one to the left and it pushes it over. And I'm going to insert another one to the left and it pushes it over. Now, when you see these, it means that data validation is being copied over from here, okay, which is okay. So I have two ways of getting rid of that. One, I can just hit the delete button, right? Or the remove data validation button over here. I can do data validation and remove validation, and that will get rid of it. And I'm going to do that one just to show you here. So I can say, hey, here's this. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to data validation. I'm going to say remove data validation. It all goes away. This one, the other way I can do it is just copy this cell, which didn't have data validation, pull it down, and it overwrites it. So there's another way to get rid of it. Now, why am I doing this? Because really what I want to know is first name. And if I could spell the word name, first name and last name. And let's say our CRM maybe spit it out with full name. And this happens a lot. I actually had recently had to solve this problem myself because of this. So I'm going to show you a formula. There's a formula you can use. It's called split. And it takes whatever's in this cell and then splits it into however many pieces it is. So in this case, I know it's only two pieces, the first name and last name. So I basically made two columns, one for the first piece, one for the second. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to say equals and then split. And then we're going to do this, and I'm going to say, I believe it is here, A2, colon, and then what it says is look for what? Where's the split that it needs? And it's a space, because there's a space in between first name and last name. So I'm saying go to this cell, split off the first part, and every time there's a space, split it off again. That's all it does. That's why this little space is in there, like it is right here. So a little space. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter. With any luck, it worked. So there we go, John Doe. Now, how do I actually copy this through? Again, same thing. I just go down. Copy it all the way down. There's John Doe. So now if this changes to Jane Smith, if this changes to Billy Joel, right, whatever it is, it'll automatically change. It goes in here, it grabs whatever it is, it splits it out. And again, sometimes you want these names, and maybe you're doing like a data history report or something like that. So that's how you can split things out. And if it was by commas, I would just say split it and then put a comma in this little section here because that's what it's looking for. So split's one of those really cool things that you just hardly ever need, but it's good to know it can do things like that. It's also a really good reason to think about spreadsheets. Now again, you're not going to be doing split formulas all the time. I just want to make sure that you know it's possible, because that's sometimes half the battle, is realizing what you can do. Now we have a pretty quick and easy thing here, but we want to do some more formulas because I want to make this a little easier. And I want to say total revenue because I want to know my total sales. And maybe I wasn't given that, and I need to know that from a company standpoint. So I'm just going to do this times this is how I'm going to do it. Now, the way I'm going to do that is a formula. So this is something you will get used to when it comes to spreadsheets. You don't have to know them to start using a spreadsheet, but very quickly you will use this one, which is the sum. So I like using the word sum and keeping it in there because it explains what's going on. Technically, you don't have to, but I like putting the word sum because it's like, okay, this is arithmetic. And then it's pretty basic. You just sort of say, I want this times this, right? In this case, that's what we're doing, that times that. And that's it. Now, I have my $45.77. Again, what can I do? Drag it down if I want. So now that formula is copied, and what's cool is that's moved it over. So it's kind of relative. It kept its relative position. So it's not referencing these, it's referencing these other things, the things right next to it. So it's really cool to be able to do that. Now, I'm going to say there is net profit here. And in order to figure out net profit, I want to do my revenue minus my cost. So I'm going to put in a little thing down here that says cost, like how much did I spend on, per salesperson, let's just pretend, right? So cost per salesperson, I'm going to say is $25. Maybe we're doing like spiffs or something for them. So it's this $25 cost. So my revenue minus my cost is the profit. So how do we do that? We're going to use the sum again. We're going to go equal SUM. It's now this minus this. And then we hit enter. So far, so good. Got my net profit. Now, what did we do before? We pulled down the formula. But watch what happens. All of a sudden, we don't get the result we expect. We should basically see the same thing over and over again, but we're not. Why is that? So, pro tip again, when you come in, you click into the spreadsheet to figure out, okay, what's it trying to do? You see I clicked into here. There's the formula up here. Watch what happens when I click into this formula. When I do this, now it's telling me here's where I'm going. So it's basically saying take this and then minus, in this case, this space, which of course there's nothing there. And if I go down to this one, you'll see what's really happening. You'll see how this kind of moves down. And why is this moving down? It's moving down because this is moving down, because it maintains its relativity, right, to where it's relative. Now, that's not particularly useful for us. So there is a way, and you will see this sometimes in formulas, to basically tell the tool, hey, listen, tell the formula in this case, I need you to not move this, always go to this one spot. And the way you do that is with a $sign. It kind of fixes it. So $B means never move from the B column. And if I say $12, it means never move from the 12. So it's always going to be B12 no matter what. And you can sometimes do selective $signs. So if you need it to move from column to column, you just take out the $sign from here. And if you need it to move cells, you can just take out the $sign there. But in this case, I want to say, no, I'm going to absolutely fix it. It can only go to B12 over and over again, no matter what. So now I've done that. Watch what happens when I copy it down. There it goes. That's what we want. That's the expected thing that we're looking for. Now, if I come through here and I click here, I want to TBV it, right? Trust but verify that this is working. Then I click into the formula and I can say, yep, it's using this value minus this. So far, so good, right? Freaking-tastic. Now, I'm going to mess up some numbers here. Let's pretend the salespeople can do some negotiation and they are trying to sell stuff and the fruits are, coming in at different rates. And here's kind of what they were figuring stuff out to be as we go through. So now we've got a bunch of different rates. We can see our net profit, our revenue, everything else. So we want to be able to make this a little easier to use. And that's the whole point of spreadsheets, is they need to be useful for you as the user. So some fast ways that we can do that to kind of pretty it up a little bit. One is I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to go in the top column here. You don't have to do this. I just like starting from kind of like a home space. I'm going to go to format and I'm going to go to alternating colors. So alternating colors. Now, automatically, and you can choose whatever you want. I'm just going to choose, let's do this one. Green's good. So we'll close that out. There we go. So now I have this nice, pretty looking table with alternating colors. And here's my little cost data separate off to the side. But I got a nice, easier to read thing. If I want, I can highlight this entire row. I can make it bold, make it a little easier. I can do some centering of things. I'm going to click here so I can make it centered. I also personally really like doing the middle of the line because it just makes it look nicer for me. So we have that. So everything's kind of nice and centered as we go through. So now we've got an easier to understand table, but let's assume I need to start using this table and get some really quick data from it. So for example, what's my average price per unit? I can do two things. I can sit here and I can say equals the sum. I'm going to show you two ways to do this. The sum of all of these, I'm just dragging and dropping now, divided by the count, which is basically saying, hey, this is how many of those things are there of all of these, and it counts the number of blocks. And there's this cool little average that pops up. So I have that. Or I can just come through here. Again, and I use this particular feature a lot when I first learned it. You just highlight the block that you want and look down here what it's doing. And Excel does this as well. So sum 1024. So it's adding together the price per unit, but that's not what I want. So when we click here, we can say, oh, there's the average, there's the minimum, there's the maximum, there's the count. So I go, wow, there's everything I need to know about this range of data. If I want to get my total revenue, I click here, there's my sum, total revenue. If I want to get my total profit, there's my sum of total profit. What was my average profit? $14.25. So right away, I can highlight a row that I'm interested in learning more about, come down here to this little section, this little explore section, and I can see this and set to my defaults if I always wanted to say, okay, default to the average. So I can always see the average. So I use this a lot because sometimes I don't need to write a whole freaking formula to find an answer. I'm going to use like one time. You just grab what you need and you come down here. Now, I said I was going to show you another way to do this. There is something called an average. So I can just come down here and say it's average of, and then highlight the block that I want and say, oh, this is the average. And there's another way to do it. So there's lots of different ways to kind of get this done. But I really, really like, especially because most of the time I'm like, okay, what did Jane and John? So I might say there's John, there's Jane. I'm doing 2 now. What was the average? 264. Right? If I want to bring in this third one, okay, now the average is 184. So it's really fast and easy for us to figure out what's going on using that little technique. It's huge, huge pro tip there. Okay, so we've talked about a lot so far. We've talked about titles going across. We talked about this conditional formatting where you can do the alternating colors. We talked about data validation, right? Pretty quick. All of a sudden, you got this like really cool working spreadsheet that's actually coming forth through here. Now let's talk about profit. And let's dress this up a little bit because some of this is better than others. Like, yes, the negatives are there, but they all kind of are presented in the same way. And there is something else that we can do called conditional formatting that'll really help pop this out. Because the idea is when you come to reports, this is how we teach it at measurementmarketing.io. The idea of reporting is that you should not have to analyze reports. That drives me nuts. You don't want to have to analyze a report. You want to be able to get in, see what's going on, get your answers, and get back out so you can go take action and get back to work. So one of the ways you can use the spreadsheet to do that is when you highlight, in this case, this particular section, then you can go to Format, and we can go to Conditional Formatting. Now here, I'm just going to do a little cheat. You can set these up to do kind of whatever you want. I'm going to go to Color Scale, and I'm going to say, okay, there's my little default that's coming through here. So I have my little default color scale, and I'm going to click on Done. Again, you can change the colors, red, yellow, green, whatever you want to do. But you will see all of a sudden, this is the color scale that's happening. Now, if I close this out, notice this. So it's showing color scale. So the darker colors are the problems, right? And the lighter colors are the good. Now, again, you could change this to green is good and red is bad or whatever else. So you can adjust that. But it's automatically taking the range of profit that it gets and it applies a heat map, basically. So you can very quickly see what's working and what's not, right? Right away, you go, okay, these 2 blocks need attention. They're higher contrast, right? Really kind of cool things that you can do with this. So just another concept into what's popular or what's potentially possible with a spreadsheet. Now, all of this, by the way, if you have something where you need to put it into Data Studio, right? This works for Data Studio well. So you have your spreadsheet, which is kind of like this data thing that you're using, but then you might actually use it as a data source for a Data Studio report. Maybe somebody in your team is doing that. So one of the things they're going to have to do is make sure it's cleaned up properly. Now, this particular one could not really be used as a Data Studio sheet. Now, why? One, it's kind of hard to figure out what it is because it's named Sheet 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here, we're going to rename it and say, this is the sales report. Let's just call it that. So sales report. So far, so good. We now know it's called sales report. That's easier for people to find and connect in. Obviously, we could, call this, my awesome spreadsheet. And then it's easy to find. So that's step 1. But very important but here. If I went to Data Studio and said, oh yeah, connect in the full name or the first name, notice that these would be just fine, but these aren't. These are, cost is still in this column here. And this $25 is still in this first name here. And it's not a first name. So it's not really clean data. And my report's it's going to look funky. It's going to give me results I don't expect. So I need to move this out of the way. So how can I do that? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and cut it here, which is basically just getting rid of it, just like with a Word doc or something. You're going to cut it. So when I go to paste it, this is going to disappear. And we're going to come up to here, upper right-hand corner. Now, I could just paste it like this. And I'm going to, just to show you. So we're just going to paste it in here. So yeah, this is new for me. I didn't know it was going to do this. I don't actually need this Chrome extension. So I've never needed this because I just know how to do Control X, Control Z, Control V. So I'm not going to install that. Thanks for asking, Google. So instead, we're just going to paste it in. I guess it needs us to do that for some reason. There we go. I'm just going to do the Control V. So we've got it pasted in here at cost and then $25. Now notice my formulas didn't break, right? Or so these ones in particular, they didn't break because if I click here, it knows that it automatically moves. So it stayed connected. So it's not down here anymore. It's not messing up my data, but it is up here. But it's a little hard to read. I really want it in a column. So what I can do is I can do this again. I'm going to Control X to cut it. And this time I'm going to paste special, and watch this. This is one of my favorite things. Sarah from our team showed us this, and I really, really like this. Paste transposed. So what I'm going to do is paste it transposed. Watch the difference. You do this, and all of a sudden it puts it in a vertical mark here. So it's vertically set up, which I think is fantastic. Like, I love how it does that. Now here's the challenge. If I delete this, see what just changed there? All my net profits went up. So it did lose the link a little bit here because it's still trying to find this J1 thing. So what I would do, if I really wanted to, if I wanted to get through that, I would just Control X to cut it, Control V to paste it. There we go, off to the races. So what's cool about the paste transpose thing, and I'll just show you again here, just so it's a little easier. If I see all of these things out, I can copy those. And let's say I wanted to put these into a different style report. I can add a sheet, and then I can paste transposed, and all it does is it just reverses the direction. So now they're all going down. And there are times where you're going to get data that's like this, and then you can copy it, and then you can come in, you can paste it transposed, and now it goes out the right way. So it's a very fast way to do this. For years, I kid you not, for years, I would go in and copy this and paste it, and copy this and then paste it, and copy this and then paste it, because I had no idea you could do paste transposed. So hopefully that's a valuable tip for you, because it really is super time-saving tip when it comes to that. Okay. So let's continue our journey through spreadsheets as we round the corner here. I want to show you a bunch of different stuff because remember, it's not about doing all these things. You don't have to use all these tools. I just want to show you a nice variety of stuff that saved me a lot of time once I realized that they were a thing and I kind of knew how to use them, right? That's really when it comes down to that. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to show you, and this is, I think, Two things we're going to show you first. One is in the displaying of spreadsheets. Let's assume I don't want full name anymore. I have different options. I can get rid of it, or I can hide it. So you see this little hide column thing here. This hide column is useful for getting rid of something that you don't need in front of you all the time. But then you'll notice how it says this little arrow that's right up here. That little arrow right there. That's how you know something's hidden. Watch what happens when I hide these. I'm just going to select these rows, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to hide these rows. So see these little arrows here? So whenever you're in a spreadsheet, if you see these little arrows off on the side, it means somebody's hidden something. Now, again, it doesn't mean they're trying to hide it from you. They're just like, this is nothing that you have to see all the time. And we do this a lot with certain budgets or things like that, where a certain section's hidden because in our case, we have spaces for new products coming out, and we just call them future product. And we have this whole thing for future products. Well, that's not something everybody has to see a million times. So we just hide the future product until there's an actual product, and then we unhide it and start using it. So how do you unhide? Probably what you thought. Just click here. It unhides it. Just click here. It unhides those. And again, if you need them to go back, you just hide them again. You just select the things that you want to select. It's always rows and columns, right? Select one thing you want to select and then hide. If you accidentally do it, no big deal. Just click the thing. It pops them right back up. So hiding columns, hiding rows, super useful to keep you focused, right? And if you're building a spreadsheet for somebody else, by the way, and it's got a ton of information, and maybe they're not as much of a numbers person as you are. Maybe they're not as comfortable with a spreadsheet as you are. Hide stuff because they don't care typically. They don't need to see it, and it helps them keep focus. Helps them to get to the answers that they want to get to. Because at the end of the day, that's why they want the spreadsheet. They probably don't even really want a spreadsheet. Let's face it, but they do want the answers in that spreadsheet. So giving them that will help. Now, the other thing in terms of display is using additional features that are available to you in these tabs, because it also helps to pretty it up a little bit, but also makes it easier to get to stuff. So you might be like, okay, I'm going to change the color of this tab. So this is the sales port. It goes green. This was just, I'm going to call this, miscellaneous stuff. And this miscellaneous stuff, I do the color, and let's call this, do a gray line here. And you can start to see that it's these different lines that are here. So it's very easy to be like, okay, what's the product I want? Oh, it's green one. And you don't have to look for words anymore. So that's another little tip on things that you can do with sheets. when you're actually trying to pretty up your spreadsheets. And again, I say pretty up, but I don't want you to think like, oh, this is just about making a spreadsheet look good, because yes, it is, but it's about making it useful. And if spreadsheets look overwhelming and just like this data dump of stuff, people won't use them. Maybe you've gotten spreadsheets like that before where you're like, I have no idea what's in here, because it's just too hard to figure stuff out. But when you start putting in some different products or data validation, when you start putting in some of the conditional formatting that you can do, the alternating colors and things like that, when you put in this sort of thing with the heat maps coming through, it can really start making it quickly very, very useful. Okay, so one last tip on the display, and that is filters, something I use a lot. So we can come up into filters. You will see this little widget here. So I do like coming up to the top spot here always when I'm doing this, because it sort of enacts it for everything. So I come up here and I just turn on filters. So now that we've done that, when we come over here, you can see these little filter options that are now sitting here with all these. So what's good about this? Well, if I just want to see apples, I can come through here and I say, just show me apples. So I can hit clear, and then I just want apples. Hit OK. Now the whole thing just shows me apples. So if I come through here, I want to say my average of apples, there it is. If I want to see the total revenue of apples, there's my average. So I flip it to sum, there's my total sum. So I don't have to do formulas, which again, hopefully some of you out there are like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to do formulas and spreadsheets all the time, because you really don't. You just need to know how to navigate through them. And turning on filters, if they're not, all you need to do is just turn them on. You can turn them off, they go away, and you won't see that. But if you turn them on like that, I just clicked on it, that's it. Oops, let's go back. Now see, this is what I did. I clicked on it, but I was in this block, and so it's filtering just this, which isn't really useful at all. So I'm just going to come back in here and turn that back off. Go back up here to A1, where I'm it's like the master for the whole spreadsheet. So I come up here, and now I'm going to click this again. Bam. Now all my columns have filters. I have personally found this the best way to use filters. So it doesn't mean like in this case, I don't need a filter for cost. It's not a big deal to have it. Who cares? But here I can say, okay, what are my products? I can sort them. So if I wanted to do sorting by last name for some reason, I can say sort. And then there's all my last names sorted. If I want to reverse the other way, sort the other way. Here's all the last names sorted. Pretty cool stuff that you can do. Again, if I want to do the same thing, sort here, and now I got it by product. If I want it sorted the other way, by product. So really quick and easy to get through to get to the answers that I'm trying to get to using filters. All right. Now, this will be the final thing. And this is because this is the thing that I wanted to give those of you where you're like, okay, I kind of know some of this stuff already. I've been doing some of this stuff, but there's always more to explore. There are hundreds, dare I say, probably thousands of different combinations of formulas that you can do with a spreadsheet. And the formulas, again, it can be as simple as the sum stuff is, right? So sum is just adding it together. It could be a little more complicated, like the split is a thing, right? And so how do you use these things and try to find out more about them? So one of the things that you can do is I can come through here and say, okay, I want to learn about a particular formula. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to this block, and this is just to learn about. So we're not going to practice this one today because this is a little bit more advanced, but but it is something you should eventually look into because it's pretty cool. So I'm going to type equals first. That just says to the spreadsheet, okay, this is about to be a formula. Whenever you say equals in a block, it means it's a formula. Then I'm going to type in VLOOKUP. So we say VLOOKUP. So now I do VLOOKUP. So now that I have that, I can click there. I just clicked in that block. That's all I did. Okay. And then now it says VLOOKUP and it gives me a parentheses because it's expecting something. So I can hover over there and actually try to look for a range, but I can also find out more about it by clicking here. So I turn on Formula Help, and then it gives you all these different details. Now, this is particularly useful if you're like someone like me, where I use VLOOKUP, and then I won't use it for like 3 more months for something else. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I know I got to use VLOOKUP, but I don't use it all the time. So I got to get a little refresher on how VLOOKUP is and what the formula is and everything else. This is how I do it. I could just Google it, but that just takes a little longer. It's more tabs to open up. So I just come in here, turn this on, and it tells me, here's what the formula is. Here's an example of it. You know, if I want to, I can go to learn more here, and it pulls up little details that I've got. This is basically what you would find if you were Googling in the support docs anyway. So you have all these. So it's pretty cool. And not to mention, sometimes this is nice because you go, oh, well, I can do it horizontally and vertically. I can look up different things, right? So there's some pretty cool stuff that you can do. And these tools, this little help box, one thing they've done a really good job with is showing you in an actual spreadsheet how to do it. Like you see the formula working, and then you can make a copy of the actual example if you do want to learn about something. So this works with any formula. Sometimes the other way that I will use this is I will say, okay, I have to figure out like, oh, you know what? I am going to show you this one because it's kind of cool. So let's pretend that I have an error that pops up. So there's something that's like an error. And I'm going to do let's say, I'm going to do profit. I'm going to do this over here. Actually, I'm going to make a little left hand insert left here. Oops, we can't get that to insert. Let's see. Let me zoom out just a little bit. I think I'm just having an issue with my screen. There we go. This is just temporary. Right click. We're going to insert one to the left. There we go. Okay. Put it back up for you. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say profit per, and then I'm going to say in this case that we're going to do, it's going to be equal to a sum, and the sum is going to be, let's say, profit divided by this. Okay. So now I have this net profit, which should be this formula here, and I'm basically saying, okay, I got this little summary. Oops, let me just do the right. This is why it's giving me an error. Got to do divided by, which is the /. There we go. So now it's doing this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to 0. Let's pretend we did 0. So right now this works as long as there's numbers, as long as, in this case, John Doe sold some apples. Now, what if John Doe didn't sell apples that week or that time period? So we hit 0. All of a sudden it goes divide by 0 error because it's a divide by 0 error. There's nothing wrong with the spreadsheet. It's working just fine. It's just telling you I can't divide by 0 because that's mathematically impossible. But it's really, really ugly. So one of the things that you can do, and I'm going to do this in a separate block over here, is I can do this. I'm going to do this equals thing. And there's two things to look at. One is called is error. And I just start typing it and you start seeing, you go, oh, cool. I'm going to go ahead and click on this one. And I'm going to click on my formula help. And I'm going to see if this is what it is. So is error. If this thing is a particular error, then great, right? Which is fine. It's like, okay, if it's an error, it just checks and sees if it's an error. In this case, I don't really need that because is error, I already know it's an error, so I don't have to worry about that. But there is another one called if error. And this is something I am constantly going, okay, was it is error or if error? Because I use both. So if error, I type in, oh, there's error. So if error, click here. I click my little help and I go if error value, then value if error. So I'm like, perfect. So I'm going to say if error, and then go find the value that I'm looking for if it's an error. And if it is, then I'm going to say error, that there's an error there. So what we're going to do is we're going to say this, we're going to change a little bit. And watch what I do here. So I'm going to click in my div by 0, right? This little error block. That pulls up this formula. So what I'm going to do, this is going to be as complicated as it gets today. Then we're going to back up and we're going to get out of here. So if error, I do my parentheses. I'm going to do another set of parentheses because I just like containing the whole thing. So that just sort of contains it like good old algebra days. So there's my sum. So I'm basically saying if this is the value, right? If it's no error, then it's no error. It'll just do that thing. Oops, let's do this here. Let me pull this up. So if this, right? And then value if error. So what does it do? And that's what the comma is going to be here. What does it do if there's an error? So I'm just going to do a 0. So we have 0. So what should show is 0 because it's an error right now. We hit enter and it says, no, that's not right at all. Let's figure out what we did. So we're going to click here, formula parse error. So let me do, believe, oops. I got to put this in. What did I do? I made a very simple error, guaranteed simple error. So sum of, oh, I know exactly what I did. Tricky parentheses. There's my parentheses, cover those up. And then there's my parentheses, cover those up. And that should work. So all I'm doing is I'm just checking my parentheses. So there's my first set of parentheses right there. This is my second set of parentheses right there. That's what a parse error, I believe, is telling me. There's my third set right there to close them all out. This should work, but let's find out. It might not. Bam, 0. That's what should have happened. So now I'm going to come through here and put it all. So now it's figuring stuff out. And of course, what I can do is I can come up here to the $sign and say format as a currency. And so now I've got everything looking just fine. So even if they didn't sell any units, it will actually just say 0 and it won't error out and it doesn't look ugly instead of having div errors. So it's the if error that you can use. Now, again, I don't expect you to remember that because it's not something you're going to use all the time, but I do use this type of thing a lot in my spreadsheets because it just, that way it doesn't look ugly and doesn't light up a bunch of stuff. And if you have those ugly errors popping up, and they should just show something else instead, if error will help you a ton when it comes to that. So needless to say, we have covered a ton of stuff about spreadsheets, a smattering of spreadsheets. And I'm starting to feel like I will actually be creating shortly Win Google Sheets, so we can actually talk about some spreadsheet stuff and actually do an entire course out of it. So for those that don't know, Win Monthly Pass is one of our products. We've got Win courses. Win stands for what I need, and we create very focused courses on different stuff like analytics, et cetera, et cetera. I'm pretty sure Win Google Sheets is coming our way because I think that would be really useful to walk through all of this instead of just showing you like a smattering of the 5 million things you can do with spreadsheets. I can actually walk through a step by step. So let me know in the comments if you think that'd be useful, because I would surely create that if people thought that'd be a useful course. All right, what was your one thing? Was it the conditional formatting? Was it the data validation? Was it the filters? Was it the fact that you can copy and paste formulas? Was it the fact you can do the paste transposed thing, which that's changed my life when it comes to spreadsheets. Thank you, Sarah, from our team. Lots of stuff that we went through and covered. The idea here is not that you're going to be an expert now on everything that we talked about. It's that you're going to go practice one of the things where you're like, well, that's cool. Go practice that. Then watch this again. Watch it 2 times as fast if you want. I know I talk fast, but you can get to the right point. Then you can slow it down and then pick up another new skill and then practice that. This one especially. I say this all the time with the workshops. Every workshop we do, you focus on one thing. But this one in particular, because we covered a lot of stuff, especially that if error. So you want to make sure that we, go through and practice that one, because that is incredibly useful to make spreadsheets look better. And if your spreadsheets look better, they're easier to use. They are more likely to be used. And the stakeholders, whether it's you or somebody else, is more likely to actually get the answers they need so they can move on and get moving forward with what they need to do in their world. Now, before we finish, I want to make sure everybody is aware that if you are interested in learning all about digital measurement, that's analytics, tag manager, spreadsheets like this, all that fun stuff that we do, measure.tips/Get Academy. We have the Measurement Marketing Academy. It is the most comprehensive product that we offer. Tons of workshops, tons of courses, instructor support, so important. Not I lost my password kind of support. We call it Ask an Instructor because it is literally where you can ask instructors for help and send over videos and screenshots, and they will send over videos and screenshots back. It's like having consultants on call. I cannot speak highly enough about the Measurement Marketing Academy. So take a look at it, measure.tips/Get Academy. If you are at all interested in learning this stuff around analytics or tag manager, how to measure your marketing, this will help you. Coming up next week, we're going to switch topics. We always do this Workshop Wednesday. Every week it's a different topic. Next week's topic is Beyond Basics. So that is for those of you who have got a little bit of experience. And we're going to talk about using custom metrics in Google Analytics, which is something that came out a while ago for Google Analytics, but a lot of people just aren't using, don't realize they can. And so I wanted to point it back out. We're going to do a quick little workshop on that so you can learn how to use custom metrics in Google Analytics. All right. Now, to be sure that you see that, of course, you want to make sure that you subscribe. So go ahead and subscribe to the button, and then we'll get you into our YouTube channel. Make sure you get notified. And then as we start broadcasting, you'll get the little notice and you can join us for Workshop Wednesday. The other way, by the way, is to become a Toolbox member. So if you're not a Measurement Marketing Academy member, that's okay. I get it. It's not always the right time, but this one's free. Everything in here is free. So Workshop Wednesday, the traffic tracking toolkits, which, by the way, is built in Spreadsheet. We have the Measure Boss business planner built in the Spreadsheet. We've got the split test optimization pipeline built in the Spreadsheet. So you're going to see how we use spreadsheets a lot too. And now you can finally start to see some of the formulas we put in there and what we're trying to do. So you can learn from that. And there's a whole bunch of other tools that are back there, all completely free. It's our way of giving back to the community. To get that activated, just go to measure.tips/WW and then just put in your name and email. And you create your free membership. You'll have access to all of those. Again, measure.tips/WW. We'll get you there. Finally, I want to make sure that we point this out each and every time while we can, because time is, in fact, running out. There is something called MeasureSummit, and this is time sensitive. As I'm recording this, it is September 9th, and as I bring this over, September 22nd, 25th, that's MeasureSummit 2020. That's when it's a 4-day event. I'm going to scroll down here. You can see the different speakers. Simo, our buddy Simo, Yehoshua, Ben Collins, speaking of spreadsheets. Holy cow, this guy knows spreadsheets inside and out. So does this guy, as a matter of fact. So David Krevik, Coding is for Losers. Fantastic. So these are some of the speakers that you're going to be seeing. Of course, Julian from Measure School and myself are going to be hosting the event. So for 4 days. And this is the agenda. So you can see everything that's being covered, what the topics are. Go through it. Again, MeasureSummit.com. I'm going going to spin up to the top here. MeasureSummit.com is where you want to go to make sure that you get registered for free. It is completely free. And of course, sponsored by Supermetrics. Thank you, Supermetrics, for sponsoring MeasureSummit.com. All right. With that, we'll bring it to a close. This has been Spreadsheets, Tips, and Tricks. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next workshop.